The Nowata Methodist Church is happy to produce a lot of different content for the edification of Christ's church throughout the world. This daily segment that you're listening to right now corresponds with the Daily Bible Reading Challenge, which is hosted by Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. If you want to download the list of readings that they publish for yourself or learn more about this challenge, this initiative, go to biblereading.christkirk.com. I'm Jeffrey Rickman. I'm the pastor here in Nowata, and I read from the Berean Standard Bible, which you can also find at berean.bible. Consider subscribing to this podcast to be a part of this daily effort to grow in familiarity with and love of God's holy word. Let's dive in for today. Hey there, it's Saturday. I'm Jeffrey Rickman. I'm the preacher at the Nowata Methodist Church, and I've been doing this series for some time, just reading through the Bible, and it's going really well. I'm really grateful for those of you who've been doing it with me. If this is your first one, welcome. I'm Jeffrey, and the format here is we just read through the scriptures as laid out by the Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. So hopefully you don't mind my voice too much. If you do, you can just put me on mute and watch the words go by, or if you're on Substack, I've got the whole text of the Berean Standard Bible, which I'm reading from, down below, so consider using that. The whole point here is just to make it as easy as possible for people to spend time in God's Word and know what's in there so that you can provide a responsible answer for your life whenever you come before the judgment seat of Christ. So, with that in mind, today we begin with 2 Samuel chapter 19. Then it was reported to Joab, the king is weeping and mourning over Absalom. And that day's victory was turned into mourning for all the people, because on that day they were told the king is grieving over his son. So they returned to the city quietly that day, as people steal away in humiliation after fleeing a battle. But the king covered his face and cried out at the top of his voice, "Oh, my son Absalom! Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." Then Joab went into the house and said to the king, "Today you have disgraced all your servants who have saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters, of your wives and of your concubines. You love those who hate you and hate those who love you. For you have made it clear today that the commanders and soldiers mean nothing to you. I know today that if Absalom were alive and all of us were dead, it would have pleased you. Now therefore get up. Go out and speak comfort to your servants, for I swear by the Lord that if you do not go out, not a man will remain with you tonight. This will be worse for you than all the adversity that has befallen you from your youth until now." So the king got up and sat in the gate, and all the people were told, "Behold, the king is sitting in the gate." So they all came before the king. Meanwhile, the Israelites had fled, each man to his home. And all the people throughout the tribes of Israel were arguing, "The king rescued us from the hand of our enemies and delivered us from the hand of the Philistines, but now he has fled the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, the man we anointed over us, has died in battle. So why do you say nothing about restoring the king?" Then King David sent this message to Zadok and Abiathar, the priests. "Say to the elders of Judah, why should you be the last to restore the king to his palace, since the talk of all Israel has reached the king at his quarters? You are my brothers, my own flesh and blood. So why should you be the last to restore the king? And say to Amasa, aren't you my flesh and blood? May God punish me, and ever so severely, if from this time you are not the commander of my army in the place of Joab." So he swayed the hearts of all the men of Judah as though they were one man. And they sent word to the king, "Return, you and all your servants." So the king returned, and when he arrived at the Jordan, the men of Judah came to Gilgal to meet him and escort him across the Jordan. Then Shimei, son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David. along with 1,000 men of Benjamin, as well as Ziba, the steward of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed down to the Jordan before the king and crossed at the ford to carry over the king's household and to do what was good in his sight. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell down before the king and said, "My lord, do not hold me guilty, and do not remember your servant's wrongdoing on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king not take it to heart. For your servant knows that I have sinned. So here I am today as the first of all the house of Joseph to come down to meet my lord the king." But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed?" And David replied, "Sons of Zeruiah, what have I to do with you, that you should be my adversaries today? Should any man be put to death in Israel today? Am I not indeed aware that today I am king over Israel?" So the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." And the king swore an oath to him. Then Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, went down to meet the king. He had not cared for his feet or trimmed his mustache or washed his clothes from the day the king had left until the day he returned safely. And he came from Jerusalem to meet the king, who asked him, "Mephibosheth, why did you not go with me?" "My lord the king," he replied, "because I am lame. I said, I will have my donkey saddled so that I may ride on it and go with the king. But my servant Ziba deceived me, and he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. Yet my lord the king is like an angel of God, so do what is good in your eyes. For all the house of my grandfather deserves death from my lord the king, yet you have set your servant among those who eat at your table. What further right, then, do I have to keep appealing to the king?" The king replied, "Why say any more? I hereby declare that you and Ziba are to divide the land." And Mephibosheth said to the king, "Instead, since my lord the king has safely come to his own house, let Ziba take it all." Now Barzillai the Gileadite had come down from Rogelim to cross the Jordan with the king and send him on his way from there. Barzillai was quite old, 80 years of age, and since he was a very wealthy man, he had provided for the king while he stayed in Mahanaim. The king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me, and I will provide for you at my side in Jerusalem." But Barzillai replied, "How many years of my life remain, that I should go up to Jerusalem with the king? I am now 80 years old. Can I discern what is good and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats or drinks? Can I still hear the voice of singing men and women? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king?" Your servant could go with the king only a short distance past the Jordan. Why should the king repay me with such a reward? Please let your servant return, that I may die in my own city near the tomb of my father and mother. But here is your servant, Chimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king, and do for him what is good in your sight." The king replied, "Chimham will cross over with me, and I will do for him what seems good in your sight, and I will do for you whatever you desire of me." So all the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed over. The king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and Barzillai returned home. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham crossed over with him. All the troops of Judah and half the troops of Israel escorted the king. Soon all the men of Israel came to the king and asked, "Why did our brothers, the men of Judah, take you away secretly and bring the king and his household across the Jordan, together with all of David's men?" And all the men of Judah replied to the men of Israel, "We did this because the king is our relative. Why does this anger you? Have we ever eaten at the king's expense or received anything for ourselves? We have 10 shares in the king, answered the men of Israel, so we have more claim to David than you. Why then do you despise us? Were we not the first to speak of restoring our king? But the men of Judah pressed even harder than the men of Israel. 2 Samuel chapter 20. Now a worthless man named Sheba, son of Bichri, a Benjamite, happened to be there, and he blew the ram's horn and shouted, "We have no share in David, no inheritance in Jesse's son. Every man to his tent, O Israel." So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from the Jordan to Jerusalem. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to care for the palace, and he placed them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but he no longer slept with them. They were confined until the day of their death, living as widows. Then the king said to Amasa, "Summon the men of Judah to come to me within 3 days, and be here yourself." So Amasa went to summon Judah, but he took longer than the time allotted him. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba the son of Bichri will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your lord's servants and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and elude us." So Joab's men, along with the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and all the mighty men, marched out of Jerusalem in pursuit of Sheba son of Bichri. And while they were at the great stone in Gibeon, Amasa joined them. Now Joab was dressed in military attire with a dagger strapped to his belt, and as he stepped forward, he slipped the dagger from its sheath. "Are you well, my brother?" Joab asked Amasa. And with his right hand, Joab grabbed Amasa by the beard to kiss him. Amasa was not on guard against the dagger in Joab's hand, and Joab stabbed him in the stomach and spilled out his intestines on the ground. And Joab did not need to strike him again, for Amasa was dead. Then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba son of Bichri. One of Joab's young men stood near Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab, and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." But Amasa wallowed in his blood in the middle of the road, and when the man saw that all the troops were stopping there, he dragged the body off the road into a field and threw a garment over it. As soon as Amasa's body was removed from the road, all the men went on with Joab to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth-Maacah, and through the entire region of the Berites, who gathered together and followed him. And Joab's troops came and besieged Sheba and Abel Beth-Maacah and built a siege ramp against the outer rampart of the city. As all the troops with Joab were battering the wall to topple it, a wise woman called out from the city, "Listen, listen! Please tell Joab to come here, so that I may speak with him." When he had come near to her, the woman asked, "Are you Joab?" "I am," he replied. "Listen to the words of your servant," she said. "I am listening," he answered. Then the woman said, "Long ago they used to say, 'Seek counsel at Abel,' and that is how disputes were settled. I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel, but you are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the Lord's inheritance?" "Far be it," Joab declared. "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. But a man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him alone, and I will depart from the city." "Look," the woman replied, "his head will be thrown to you over the wall." Then the woman went to all the people with her wise counsel, and they cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bichri, and threw it to Joab. So he blew the ram's horn, and his men dispersed from the city, each to his own home. And Joab returned to the king in Jerusalem. Now Joab was over the whole army of Israel. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of the forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the recorder. Sheva was the scribe. Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira the Jairite was David's priest. 2 Samuel chapter 21. During the reign of David there was a famine for 3 successive years, and David sought the face of the Lord. And the Lord said, "It is because of the blood shed by Saul and his family, because he killed the Gibeonites." At this David summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not Israelites, but a remnant of the Amorites. The Israelites had taken an oath concerning them, but in his zeal for Israel and Judah, Saul had sought to kill them. So David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How can I make amends so that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" The Gibeonites said to him, "We need no silver or gold from Saul or his house, nor should you put to death anyone in Israel for us." "Whatever you ask, I will do it for you," he replied. And they answered the king, "As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us to exterminate us from existing within any border of Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be delivered to us, so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." "I will give them to you," said the king. Now the king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armani and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons whom Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had borne to Saul, as well as the 5 sons whom Merab, daughter of Saul, had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Mahalathite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So all 7 of them fell together. They were put to death in the first days of the harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest until the rain from heaven poured down on the bodies, she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. When David was told what Saul's concubine Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh-Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung the bodies after they had struck down Saul at Gilboa. So David had the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan brought from there, along with the bones of those who had been hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in Zelah, in the land of Benjamin, in the tomb of Saul's father Kish. After they had done everything the king had commanded, God answered their prayers for the land. Once again the Philistines waged war against Israel, and David and his servants went down and fought against the Philistines. But David became exhausted. Then Ishbi-Benob, a descendant of Rapha, whose bronze spear weighed 300 shekels, and who was bearing a new sword, resolved to kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to his aid, struck the Philistine, and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You must never again go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel may not be extinguished." Sometime later at Gob there was another battle with the Philistines. At that time Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. Once again there was a battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, son of Jair the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was still another battle at Gath, where there was a man of great stature with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. 24 in all. He too was descended from Rapha. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of David's brother, Shimei, killed him. So these 4 descendants of Rapha and Gath fell at the hands of David and his servants. 2 Samuel chapter 22. And David sang this song to the Lord on the day the Lord had delivered him from the hands of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold, my refuge, and my Savior. You save me from violence. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. For the waves of death engulfed me. The torrents of chaos overwhelmed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. I cried out to my God. And from his temple he heard my voice, and my cry for help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked. The foundations of the heavens trembled. They were shaken because he burned with anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils, and consuming fire came from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth. He parted the heavens and came down with dark clouds beneath his feet. He mounted a cherub and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness a canopy around him, a gathering of water and thick clouds. From the brightness of his presence, coals of fire blazed forth. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the foes. He hurled lightning and routed them. The channels of the sea appeared, and the foundations of the world were exposed at the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast at the breath of his nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from foes too mighty for me. They confronted me in my day of calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into the open. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness. He has repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his ordinances are before me. I have not disregarded his statutes, and I have been blameless before him and kept myself from iniquity. So the Lord has repaid me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight. To the faithful you shall show yourself faithful. To the blameless you shall show yourself blameless. To the pure you show yourself pure. But to the crooked you show yourself shrewd. You save an afflicted people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you, O Lord, are my lamp. The Lord lights up my darkness. For in you I can charge an army. With my God I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is flawless. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord? And who is the rock except our God? God is my strong fortress, and he makes my way clear. He makes my feet like those of a deer and stations me upon the heights. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me your shield of salvation, and your gentleness exalts me. You broaden the path beneath me so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and destroyed them. I did not turn back until they were consumed. I devoured and crushed them so they could not rise. They have fallen under my feet. You have armed me with strength for battle. You have subdued my foes beneath me. You have made my enemies retreat before me. I put an end to those who hated me. They looked, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord, but he did not answer. I ground them as the dust of the earth. I crushed and trampled them like mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the strife of my people. You have preserved me as the head of the nations. A people I had not known shall serve me. Foreigners cower before me. When they hear me, they obey me. Foreigners lose heart and come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock. And may God, the rock of my salvation, be exalted. The God who avenges me and brings down nations beneath me, who frees me from my enemies. You exalt me above my foes. You rescue me from violent men. Therefore I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king. He shows loving devotion to his anointed, to David and his descendants, forever. 2 Samuel chapter 23. These are the last words of David. The oracle of David, son of Jesse, the oracle of the man raised on high, the one anointed by God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. The God of Israel spoke. The Rock of Israel said to me, He who rules the people with justice, who rules in the fear of God, is like the light of the morning at sunrise of a cloudless dawn, the glistening after the rain on the sprouting grass of the earth. Is not my house right with God? For he has established with me an everlasting covenant, ordered and secured in every part. Will he not bring about my full salvation and my every desire? But the worthless are all like thorns raked aside, for they can never be gathered by hand. The man who touches them must be armed with iron or with the shaft of a spear. The fire burns them to ashes in the place where they lie. These are the names of David's mighty men. Josheb-Basshebeth, the Tekemonite, was chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 800 men, whom he killed at one time. Next in command was Eleazar, son of Dodo, the Ahohite. As one of the three mighty men, he went with David to taunt the Philistines who had gathered for battle at Pasdamim. The men of Israel retreated, but Eleazar stood his ground and struck the Philistines until his hand grew weary and stuck to his sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. Then the troops returned to him, but only to plunder the dead. And after him was Shammah, son of Agi, the Hararite. When the Philistines had banded together near a field full of lentils, Israel's troops fled from them. But Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field, defended it, and struck down the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory. At harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief men went down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a company of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time David was in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine camp, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out to the Lord, saying, "Far be it from me, O Lord, to do this. Is this not the blood of the men who risked their lives?" So he refused to drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty men. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab and son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 3, and he lifted his spear against 300 men, killed them, and won a name along with the 3. Was he not more honored than the 3? And he became their commander, even though he was not included among the 3. And Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was a man of valor from Kabzeel, a man of many exploits. He struck down 2 champions of Moab, and on a snowy day he went down into a pit and killed a lion. He also killed an Egyptian, a huge man. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club, snatched the spear from his hand, and killed the Egyptian with his own spear. These were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, who won a name alongside the 3 mighty men. He was most honored among the 30, but he did not become one of the 3, and David appointed him over his guard. Now these were the members of the 30: Asahel, the brother of Joab, Elhanan, son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shammah the Harodite, Elika the Harodite, Helez the Paltite, Ira, son of Ikesh the Tekoite, Abiezer the Anathothite, Mebunai the Hushathite, Zalmon the Ahohite, Maharai the Netophathite, Heled, son of Baanah the Netophathite, Ittai, son of Ribai from Gibeah of the Benjamites, Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hiddai from the brooks of Gaash, Abi Alban the Arbathite, Asmaveth the Barhumite, Eliahba the Shaalbanite, the sons of Jashin, Jonathan son of Shammah the Hararite, Ahiam son of Sharar the Hararite, Eliphelet son of Ahasbai the Maakathite, Eliam son of Ahithophel the Gilonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Paarai the Arbite, Igal son of Nathan of Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai the Beerothite, the armor-bearer of Joab son of Zeruiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, and Uriah the Hittite. There were 37 in all. 2 Samuel chapter 24. Again the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he stirred up David against them, saying, "Go and take a census of Israel and Judah." So the king said to Joab, the commander of his army who was with him, "Go now throughout the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba and register the troops, so that I may know their number." But Joab replied to the king, "May the Lord your God multiply the troops 100 times over, and may the eyes of my lord the king see it. But why does my lord the king want to do such a thing?" Nevertheless, the king's word prevailed against Joab and against the commanders of the army. So Joab and the commanders of the army departed from the presence of the king to count the troops of Israel. They crossed over the Jordan and camped near Aroer, south of the town in the middle of the valley, and proceeded toward Gad and Jazer. Then they went to Gilead and the land of Tahtim Hodshi, and on to Dan Ja'an around to Sidon. They went toward the fortress of Tyre and all the cities of the Hivites and Canaanites. Finally, they went on to the Negev of Judah to Beersheba. At the end of 9 months and 20 days, having gone through the whole land, they returned to Jerusalem. And Joab reported to the king the total number of the troops. In Israel there were 800,000 men of valor who drew the sword, and in Judah there were 500,000. After David had numbered the troops, his conscience was stricken, and he said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. Now, O Lord, I beg you to take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have acted very foolishly. When David got up in the morning, a revelation from the Lord had come to Gad, the prophet, David's seer. Go and tell David that this is what the Lord says. I am offering you 3 options. Choose one of them, and I will carry it out against you. So Gad went and said to David, Do you choose to endure 3 years of famine in your land, 3 months of fleeing the pursuit of your enemies, or 3 days of plague upon your land? Now then, think it over and decide how I should reply to him who sent me. David answered Gad, I am deeply distressed. Please let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great. But do not let me fall into the hands of men. So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel from that morning until the appointed time, and 70,000 of the people from Dan to Beersheba died. But when the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord relented from the calamity and said to the angel who was destroying the people, Enough, withdraw your hand now. At that time the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. When David saw the angel striking down the people, he said to the Lord, Surely I, the shepherd, have sinned and acted wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Please, let your hand fall upon me and my father's house. And that day Gad came to David and said to him, Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up at the word of Gad, just as the Lord had commanded. When Araunah looked out and saw the king and his servants coming toward him, he went out and bowed face down before the king. Why has my lord the king come to his servant? Araunah said. To buy your threshing floor, David replied, that I may build an altar to the Lord, so that the plague upon the people may be halted. Araunah said to David, My lord the king may take whatever seems good and offer it up. Here are the oxen for a burnt offering, and the threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. O king, Araunah gives all these to the king. He also said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. No, replied the king, I insist on paying a price, for I will not offer to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And there he built an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. Then the Lord answered the prayers on behalf of the land, and the plague upon Israel was halted. All right, that concludes our readings from 2 Samuel for today. Now we're on to a few Psalms, beginning with Psalm 18. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of chaos overwhelmed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry for his help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains trembled. They were shaken because he burned with anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils, and consuming fire came from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth. He parted the heavens and came down with dark clouds beneath his feet. He mounted a cherub and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his hiding place, and storm clouds a canopy around him. From the brightness of his presence his clouds advanced, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord thundered from heaven, the voice of the Most High resounded, hailstones and coals of fire. He shot his arrows and scattered his foes. He hurled lightning and routed them. The channels of the sea appeared, and the foundations of the world were exposed. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils, he reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from foes too mighty for me. They confronted me in my day of calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into the open. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness. He has repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his ordinances are before me. I have not disregarded his statutes. And I have been blameless before him, and kept myself from iniquity. So the Lord has repaid me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. To the faithful you show yourself faithful. To the blameless you show yourself blameless. To the pure you show yourself pure, but to the crooked you show yourself shrewd. For you save an afflicted people, but you humble those with haughty eyes. For you, O Lord, light my lamp. My God lights up my darkness. For in you I can charge an army, and with my God I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is flawless. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord? And who is the rock except our God? It is God who arms me with strength and makes my way clear. He makes my feet like those of a deer and stations me upon the heights. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me your shield of salvation. Your right hand upholds me, and your gentleness exalts me. You broaden the path beneath me so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and overtook them. I did not turn back until they were consumed. I crushed them so they could not rise. They have fallen under my feet. You have armed me with strength for battle. You have subdued my foes beneath me. You have made my enemies retreat before me. I put an end to those who hated me. They cried for help, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord, but he did not answer. I ground them as the dust in the face of the wind. I trampled them like mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the strife of the people. You have made me the head of nations. A people I had not known shall serve me. When they hear me, they obey me. Foreigners cower before me. Foreigners lose heart and come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and may the God of my salvation be exalted. The God who avenges me and subdues nations beneath me, who delivers me from my enemies. You exalt me above my foes. You rescue me from violent men. Therefore I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king. He shows loving devotion to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. Psalm 50. The mighty one, God, the Lord, speaks and summons the earth, from where the sun rises to where it sets. From Zion, perfect in beauty, God shines forth. Our God approaches and will not be silent. Consuming fire precedes him, and a tempest rages around him. He summons the heavens above and the earth that he may judge his people. Gather to me my saints who made a covenant with me by sacrifice, and the heavens proclaim his righteousness, for God himself is judge. Selah. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. O Israel, and I will testify against you. I am God, your God. I do not rebuke you, for your sacrifices and your burnt offerings are ever before me. I have no need for a bull from your stall or goats from your pens. For every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird in the mountains, and the creatures of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Do I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats? Sacrifice a thank offering to God, and fulfill your vows to the Most High. Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you will honor me. To the wicked, however, God says, what right have you to recite my statutes and to bear my covenant on your lips? For you hate my instruction and cast my words behind you. When you see a thief, you befriend him and throw in your lot with adulterers. You unleash your mouth for evil and unharness your tongue for deceit. You sit and malign your brother. You slander your own mother's son. You have done these things, and I have kept silent. You thought I was just like you, but now I rebuke you and accuse you to your face. Now consider this, you who forget God, lest I tear you to pieces with no one to rescue you. He who sacrifices a thank offering honors me, and to him who writes his way, I will show the salvation of God. Psalm 59. Deliver me from my enemies, O my God. Protect me from those who rise against me. Deliver me from the workers of iniquity, and save me from the men of bloodshed. See how they lie in wait for me. Fierce men conspire against me. For no transgression or sin of my own, O Lord. For no fault of my own. They move swiftly to attack me. Arise to help me and take notice. O Lord, God of hosts, the God of Israel, rouse yourself to punish all the nations. Show no mercy to the wicked traitors. Selah. They return in the evening, snarling like dogs and prowling around the city. See what they spew from their mouths. Sharp words from their lips. Who can hear us? But you, O Lord, laugh at them. You scoff at all the nations. I will keep watch for you, O my strength, because you, O God, are my fortress. My God of loving devotion will come to meet me. God will stare down my foes. Do not kill them, or my people will forget. Scatter them by your power and bring them down, O Lord, our shield. By the sins of their mouths and the words of their lips, let them be trapped in their pride, in the curses and lies they utter. Consume them in wrath. Consume them till they are no more, so it may be known to the ends of the earth that God rules over Jacob. Selah. They return in the evening snarling like dogs and prowling around the city. They scavenge for food and growl if they are not satisfied. But I will sing of your strength and proclaim your loving devotion in the morning. For you are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble. To you, O my strength, I sing praises. For you, O God, are my fortress, my God of loving devotion. The word of the Lord. That was a long reading today. Man, there was a lot of content there. I think that wraps up 2 Samuel. It's not the end of David. We still have some more stuff about him in 1 Kings. But we won't be reading tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Lord's Day, which means the place you should be is worshiping with your covenant body, otherwise known as the local church. So I hope you have plans to do that. If you live in the Nowata area, please come worship with me if you don't already have a local church body. This is just a basic thing, so I hope that as we're spending time in God's Word, that you're constantly feeling the tug to meditate on God's Word, not alone in your home, although that's important too, but especially in the community of saints. It's always been a process, a communal process of discerning God's Word together. So I hope you have a good group of people that you're doing that with. And I'm glad to be a person that is included in that. But being with me and recording just is not going to compare to the quality of the fellowship that you can and should have in the local church. So I pray that blessing for you tomorrow. May the Lord bless you and keep you. I'll see you in 2 days. Bye.